Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Inside Scoop, Emerald Planet. All the ecology news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's your host, Executive Director of the Emerald Planet, Dr. Sam Lee Hancock.
Hello, I'm Dr. Sam Hancock from Washington, D.C., the President and Executive Director of Emerald Planet, a group that's going around the world working with 143 different nations, looking at the best practices for environmental quality, economic development, and social justice. Thank you for being with us. We have three outstanding guests that are going to be with us and talking about water, and water as the essence and the staff of life. And we're looking at different regions of the world, and we're going to be talking about the Caribbean, Latin America, Africa, and Asia. And the first outstanding guest that we have with us is Lindsay Mattison, who is the Executive Director of International Action. Lindsay, thank you for being here.
Thank you. It's a privilege.
Thank you for coming and talking with us. I know that you're working currently in South America, which is in Haiti specifically, and then you're going to be expanding into China. But tell us a little bit about International Action. What is the origin, when did it start, and what's the vision for the group? Okay.
We're about 4 years old, and I started it, have remained the Executive Director. The purpose is to use a piece of technology, this which is a chlorinator, takes tablets of chlorine and adds them to water supply in poor countries. It's very inexpensive. We pay about $40 for this, and it can serve on a water tank about 10,000 people, so that it's a reasonably priced thing. The chlorine tablets, which look a good deal like this, which fit in here and melt when the water goes through and mix with the water in a tank, are also very inexpensive. We can probably serve 50,000 people with about $50 a month in chlorine expense.
So we could say your vision then is to reach out to least developed nations and trying to provide them good, clean, and quality water. Is that correct?
Right. The primary cause for infant mortality and childhood illness in developing countries are waterborne diseases: cholera, hepatitis, typhoid, and constant chronic diarrhea. These are very destructive, and they kill more kids than any other form of disease.
Yeah, I understand from the reports that have been put out by the United Nations and WHO, the World Health Organization, that half the children that die because of bad water.
Yeah. We started in Port-au-Prince, Haiti about 3 years ago. Since then, we've put in 120 chlorinators on water tanks, the public water tanks in the city. We have about 400,000 people in Port-au-Prince drinking our water. The city is 2.5 million people, and it has no sewer system and really no privies. So most of the water that gets to the public is contaminated, whether it comes from wells or streams or springs, because there's no treatment of sewage.
This is one of the things I think, Lindsay Mattison, that many of the experts are saying is that if you're going to bring clean water, you need to also bring sanitation along with that. Would that be the contention of International Action?
Sure. The problem is that sanitation is enormously expensive. The infrastructure needed to deal with sewage is quite extraordinary and quite expensive. We're a small organization with minimum funds. Adding chlorine is, as I said, very inexpensive, and it does kill off the beasties that are in the water.
Correct.
And does protect the kids. We have the reaction of the mothers in the neighborhoods where we've put the chlorinators is almost miraculous. Within 3 or 4 days after we start chlorine, in a neighborhood, the kids stop having diarrhea constantly. And these are kids that have enormous problems of diarrhea continuously.
And if that's not stopped or treated, then that's many times, one, it reduces their energy and strength, but secondly, it could lead to death.
Well, and something that doesn't often get commented on, it also lowers their IQ. It has a tremendous impact on their education level and their ability to function. I think one of the reasons they have such tragic problems with their children in Port-au-Prince has to do with the water supply and this constant sickness.
Well, we're using Haiti as the case example, but if you look around the globe, there's some 100+ developing countries, and they all have the same problems, where it's bad water quality, well, and then again, that's coupled with poor sanitation.
We picked Haiti because it's probably the toughest situation for children, has the worst water supply of about 150 countries, but it's only a couple of hours from Washington, and we figured this would be a model for the World Bank and the Inter-American Development Bank and a series of institutions which are in Washington, and we tried to lure them into looking at the impact of our program in Haiti. Actually, the people that have found us and are beginning to spread us internationally are not these institutions that I thought would be.
I was just getting ready to ask you about this new venture that you're going to go into. Tell us a little bit about your outreach into Asia.
There is an agency of the Chinese government run by a woman, Barbara Ma, called the Consultative Council on Science and Technology for the rural poor in China. And
now, is this a government agency or is this an NGO?
No, I think it's a government agency.
Government agency, okay.
But in any case, they discovered our website. They got very interested in the technology, and they want us to come to China. They've given us a province in China, Shaanxi, which is out in the west, is one of the poorer provinces in China. The dimensions of the problem in rural China is quite extraordinary. There are 13,000 water systems in that province.
My goodness.
So
now, how would that compare to the situation you're working in Haiti? I know you're in Port-au-Prince, which is the capital city.
Yeah.
So about how many water systems is in Port-au-Prince, and do that in conjunction with what you're going to be visiting and seeing in China?
The fact of the matter is, in Port-au-Prince, we've done all the water tanks, 120 water tanks. Those are the neighborhoods.
So it's 120 of the water tanks.
But that means only 400,000 Haitians get clean water. There are another 2 million people in the city that don't have water tanks. And
now with the poor distribution, I've been in Port-au-Prince 3 different occasions, and we've worked on projects with Rotary International, both for vocational education and health care. And in traveling around the city, there was just not an adequate water transportation system there. So what are the other people doing?
Well,
and why aren't they using tanks?
There are about 400 trucks in Port-au-Prince that go down into Cité Soleil, which is the lowest point near the bay, and pump water out of an underground source there, which I believe is probably the dirtiest water in the city, since it's the lowest point in the city.
Everything is coming off the hills right down into this water source.
And these 300 or 400 trucks drive up into the city, the higher parts of the city, and deliver this water to vendors who sell it to the poorest people in the city. And for a time, I was about trying to put chlorine in the tanks of those trucks. But I discovered these are old iron tanks, and if I put chlorine in there, it eats up the iron tank. At which point,
so they go from a tank to a sieve. Is that what you're saying, Lindsey?
And I get chased by the mafia in Port-au-Prince, which controls the water trucks.
But let's transport over to China now. So you have this very successful pilot project that you started in Port-au-Prince,
Yeah.
and now the Chinese government's come to you as far as working with one of their most remote provinces. And how do you feel that, how are you going to be able to reach that many water systems in this very large province?
We're going to train teams of Chinese. I mean, it's
So
clear.
it's going to be like train the trainer then?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the funny things is that one of the companies that we buy chlorinators from, this chlorinator, and the chlorine tablets, Norweco in Norwalk, Ohio, make many of their chlorinators and chlorine in China. And
so they're bringing them, importing them into the United States and
Right.
distributing them out. And
so
now
now
we're going to be using them back in China.
the extraordinary thing is that in major cities in the United States and even rural areas, we add liquid chlorine or gas chlorine to the water. That's done by professionals because it's very dangerous. Chlorine is very volatile and poison gas. They use it in World War I. Our tablets are quite non-dangerous, quite safe for any
Well, they're very
amateur.
stable and they're solid, so they're
Right.
easy to handle, correct?
Right. And so we've got a system that you can give to amateur groups and they can take care of their water problem. Whereas if you use liquid or gas chlorine, you'd probably kill everybody in the region.
Now tell us, how did you get started in Haiti? What was the process for that? And then how did you go about actually training the local expertise to take care of putting in the chlorine and taking care of the tanks?
I had a friend who worked for AID on helping run elections in Haiti, and he dragged me to Haiti, and I was horrified to discover a city of 2.5 million people without a water system, without a sewer system, and so on.
Correct.
I couldn't believe it. And we were using this in rural Honduras in little villages. And I said, I don't see why I can't glue this thing onto the water tank in a city. And so we just did. We sort of invented it out of necessity.
So you actually started working in Honduras first.
Yeah.
Which I was down there just recently for a big international conference, which is called TIC Americas. And this is to develop high technology green products that can be used around the globe. So looking at Honduras and then transferring this into Haiti and now over to China, what are the challenges that we have just about 60 seconds. And let's close with this. Looking at Honduras, Haiti, and China, what's the main challenge that you see in about 30 seconds? Gives you pause, doesn't it?
Yeah. I don't, let's think. I don't have an answer for that. It's one of the things we're having to do now in Haiti is import a fiberglass factory to make tanks because they don't have water tanks.
Well, Lindsay Mattison, Executive Director of International Action, who is expanding greatly as he sits right in front of us, going around the globe from Honduras, Haiti to China. I'm Dr. Sam Hancock. Thank you for being with us for Emerald Planet, and we look forward to being back with you soon and talking about water, the essence, and the source of life. Thank you.
Osama bin Laden calls getting nuclear weapons a religious duty.
Today, materials that can be used to make nuclear weapons are stored in more than 40 countries.
Sometimes protected by just a chain-link fence.
Yet not enough is being done to lock down these materials
Before terrorists steal them.
Why did we learn all this?
My mother,
My son
My sister-in-law.
were all murdered September 11th.
help protect America.
Together we can.
Please join us.
The stem cell issue is being debated throughout the country. Truth is, most everyone has an opinion, even if they don't know the facts.
Let's stop arguing and start really understanding the potential of stem cell research.
For us and for millions of Americans living with disabilities, get the facts.
Call 1-877-842-3442 for free information from the Stem Cell Research Foundation. That's 1-877-842-3442.
Following the tragic events of September 11th, there have been hundreds of violent attacks against innocent Americans.
Remember what that flag you're waving stands for.
Remember, please stop the hate.
We're stronger when we are united.
Remember
what that flag you're waving stands for.
One nation under God.
Indivisible.
With liberty
and justice
for all.
In America, there's either room for everyone, or it's not America. Don't pick the wrong fight.
Let's keep America land of the free.
Stop the hate.
Planning a home renovation? Put this at the top of your to-do list. Because after 10 years, none of you are protected against tetanus and another potentially fatal disease, diphtheria. A minor injury, such as a cut or a scrape, can put you at risk for a tetanus infection. And while safety gear offers some protection, an up-to-date vaccination called the TD booster is the best insurance against tetanus. So get the TD booster. If it's been 10, do it again.
We're back to the Inside Scoop Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Hello, I'm Dr. Sam Hancock, Executive Director and President of Emerald Planet in Washington, D.C. We're working with 143 nations around the globe looking for the best practices for environmental, economic, and social development. We look upon ourselves as being the link of these technologies, processes, and services to those in the greatest need in these many different countries. We have a guest that's with us that's going to be talking about Rotary International. This is May Gwinn, who is a member of the Rotary Club of Washington, D.C. and Rotary International. And she's a very active member of the World Community Service Committee, looking at projects all over the globe, in Asia, Latin America, Africa, and many other parts across the Pacific. And so we welcome May Gwinn.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Tell us a little bit about Rotary International, its scope, number of clubs, and the number of members, and then let's talk about some of the projects, and then we're going to, of course, be talking about water, which is indeed the essence of life. So May Gwinn, Rotary International.
Well, the first Rotary Club was founded in Chicago, Illinois in 1903 by a fellow named Paul Harris, and it was the world's first service club. Its mission initially was professional fellowship, but quickly expanded to help serve communities in need. So Rotary members found that they could pool their resources and contribute their talents to help those less fortunate.
So today, it's a service organization that's reaching out to the community then.
Exactly. Today we have 1.2 million members.
That's incredible.
Yeah. 33,000 clubs in 200 countries worldwide.
Well, which is just virtually all the countries on the globe.
That's a lot of volunteers.
That's a lot of volunteers. And I think many people think of it as more of a social organization for business and government types and local communities, but really encompasses education, health care, nonprofits. It's really representative of the total community. Would you agree with that, May Gwinn?
I would. You know, the first question they ask is, what would it take to change the world? And Rotary has an answer, of course.
And what would that answer be? Let's put you on the spot and see if you pass the exam.
Well, you know, they have 1.2 members, so that's a lot of volunteers, as I said. So they can man local, national, regional, humanitarian projects to combat hunger, to improve health and sanitation through their clean water initiatives. They can provide education and job training, and they can alleviate suffering in international conflicts and problems relating to severe climate change.
Well, we're talking about very broad products and projects going on around the globe. Many activities are involved, but one of the largest overarching projects, of course, has been Polio Plus. For our audience, which is worldwide, what is Polio Plus and how has Rotary been involved and actually taken a leadership role in that?
Polio Plus is one of the most ambitious programs in Rotary's history. In 1998, Rotary inspired a global partnership under the World Health Assembly to pass a resolution dedicated to eradicating polio. This was a 20-year program. It's still going on, and it provides immunization programs in developing countries. And the need was great. In 1985, there were 350,000 polio cases in 125 countries.
Now, is this on a yearly basis? There's that many?
That's how many there were in 1985. Polio affected 1,000 children every day. I mean, every month, excuse me. But today, in 2008, well, actually, according to 2008 statistics, there are no more than 2,000 cases a year. So that's a huge improvement. Through the efforts of Rotary and its international partners like the World Health Organization, the number of polio cases has been reduced by 99%. That's a huge reduction.
Now, I understand that actually it's isolated now in only about 5 provinces or regions in the world, where before it was spread across almost all the 150 developing countries around the globe. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. But the polio cases represented in that 1% will be the most challenging and difficult to prevent. The reason is because they are geographically isolated. There's a lot of worker fatigue, there's armed conflict, and a lot of cultural barriers. So we're still working to eliminate that 1%, but you know, even though we say that polio is on the verge of extinction, the threat is still out there. So, you know, if we don't eradicate polio, there could be 10 million more children with polio in the next 40 years.
You know, the Polio Plus has been a huge program. Rotary itself has raised right at $1 billion US for this, and of course they're saying the match from the WHO, the World Health Organization, local governments, and all that is at least another $5 billion. But now they're looking at an even more ambitious project that has totally been decided yet, but this whole thing of clean water and sanitation. So where do you see that, May Gwinn, that's going to be taking us in the future?
That is our next big project. Rotary recognizes that the world is facing a huge water crisis.
Which is even larger than the ravages of polio.
Definitely, and more devastating. Kofi Annan, the former UN Secretary General, said that access to safe water is a fundamental human need, and therefore a basic human right. Only 1% of the world's water is clean and fit to drink. So every year there are 1.8 million people, 90% of them children under 5, who die from diseases like diarrhea, as Lindsay Mattison suggested, associated with unclean, unsafe water and inadequate sanitation facilities.
Yeah, I understand that, as you were saying, is about, was it 1.1, 1.2 that does not have clean water, then it's almost, what, 2.8 million that doesn't have adequate sanitation and wastewater treatment. Is that correct?
Exactly. 1 billion, over 1 billion people lack access to safe drinking water. 2.6 billion lack sanitary facilities.
See, those are such huge numbers. It's hard, I think, for our viewing audience to wrap their mind around this. Is how can 2.6 billion people, we're saying million, but billion people, not have access to proper sanitation, which goes, as we've talked about in other programs, you're contaminating whatever clean water that you may have, even though it's coming out of wells.
So, the UN Millennium Development Goal for 2015 is to cut in half the proportion of people without access to clean water and safe sanitation. This means reaching 275,000 people with clean water every day.
Those are tremendous.
It's unimaginable, but it's possible. You can do it.
We have a few slides we would like to share based on some projects that are going on in the Latin America and also in Africa. If we could bring those slides up, and maybe we could just have a few comments about those, May Gwinn. Looking at this, tell us those numbers again as we're looking at this beautiful photograph in front of us. What is the numbers lacking water and also facing improper sanitation?
This is a child in the Azawak region of Niger. 1 of 2 children die before the age of 5 in this region. One borehole in Niger, in the Azawak region, can change the lives of 25,000 people.
Let's look at the next photograph as we move forward. May, what are we looking at here?
Oh, this is the first water well that was put in by Aman Iman, Water is Life, an NGO that was started by a really wonderful social entrepreneur called Ariane Kirtley, a graduate of the Yale School of Public Health. Almost single-handedly, she mobilized.
And we
hopefully.
And we understand these boreholes or these wells go down somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 feet, and that's
there is water
depth
under the ground, but you have to really dig deep to get it.
Let's look at this next.
And it's expensive.
It's very expensive. Let's look at this next slide. And this will give our viewing public around the globe, many of which are facing this on a day-to-day basis. But this is the water distribution system that we're looking at right here.
Doggies and water cans, right? This is our borehole. I mean, not ours, but the Water is Life borehole in Niger. And before this well was put in, women had to walk almost 30 miles to get water.
Yeah, the world average, we understand, in developing countries is almost 4 miles a day, 2 miles one way to get 1 bucket of water, which in most cases is actually dirty water.
Yeah, it's usually even quite
more
dirty.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Let's look at this last slide, and then we're going to need to close out for this section. We're looking at here, what are we looking at, May, this water filtration in the back corner?
This is a biosand filter in the Dominican Republic where this family was plagued with intestinal illnesses, and now they can just drink clean water and have a,
Well, we have about 30 seconds left. We're looking at the world. What would you like to leave with our viewing public? 30 seconds.
If you want to make a difference in the world, I think you could join the Rotary Club, contribute to the Rotary Foundation or Water is Life, and
be involved.
And be involved. And eliminate childhood diseases, 90% of which are from
good water.
Yeah, clean water.
Thank you very much for being with us.
Yeah.
Dr. Sam Hancock, Washington, D.C., Emerald Planet. We're talking about water, the essence of life, and we look forward to being back with you again soon. Thank you very much.
Around the world, 1 out of every 3 women will be beaten or otherwise abused in their lifetime, often by a family member or loved one. A future free from violence. It's all she's ever wished for.
Did you know you have the power to stop children from joining gangs? You can help a father find a job and home for his family. You can assist a woman who can't afford the medicine she needs to live and the home she can't live without. You can choose to make a difference in our community. Support Volunteers of America, and you can help improve the lives of nearly 2 million Americans each year with programs and services that help individuals and families overcome their challenges to become as independent as possible. Support the programs that are working in our community. Contact Volunteers of America today. Call 1-800-899-0089.
For some folks, saving for the future is easy, but for you, it might take a little more effort. Saving for your future is your responsibility, and there's a lot to save for.
I never thought of that.
Like your child's education, perhaps uncovered medical expenses, or just to be sure you can live the way you want when you retire. The time is now to save for tomorrow. Save now or work forever. The choice is yours. Choose to save.
We're back to the Inside Scoop Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Hello, I'm Dr. Sam Hancock from Washington, D.C., Executive Director, President of the Emerald Planet. We're talking about water, the essence of life. This is really a horrendous problem that's faced all over the globe, no matter what developing countries that you're going into. And now we're facing more and more in even the developed countries of having adequate water to meet the ever-expanding population base. But yet we need to look at these developing countries that are in Asia, Africa, South America, across the Pacific, and other regions of the globe, and determine how we can best meet them with the best practices. That's the essence of Emerald Planet, looking at the best practices and how we can link those resources that are out there with those in the greatest need. We have an outstanding member being with us today. It's working on the practical basis of how do we develop these best practices, not only from the standpoint of getting it to the people most in need, but how do you get it to them so that it's affordable, it's on a constant basis, and sustainable. We have Youngmin Chang, who is the Associate Director for International Action, which is located in Washington, D.C. Youngmin Chang, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us here.
And I understand that your organization, International Action, has been working in Honduras and then Haiti, and you're going to be expanding into China. But let's talk a little bit about Haiti, the experiences that you've had there, and why Haiti?
Why Haiti? Because it's so close to America. It's just a 1-hour flight from Florida. So anybody can go there and see our project. Our goal, vision is that we can spread out this technology to all of the country, to Africa and Asia, and through World Bank or IDB. And those people can just fly to Haiti and see our project working just fine for urban area in Haiti. So it's just a perfect location for bringing people.
Well, in the world, we understand there's over 1 billion citizens that do not have access to adequate water. More than double of that does not have proper sanitation. But if you look at a country like Haiti, it's almost 100% of the people that do not have clean water and adequate sanitation. So again, why Haiti?
Well, in Honduras, we worked on rural area, and when you go to rural area, each village has only 1,000 or 2,000 people. So when we install one of our devices there, it only helps 2,000 people or so on. When you go to Port-au-Prince, the capital of Haiti, so many people from rural area move to Port-au-Prince to get a job, in a hope to get a job. So it has 2.5 million people living in that dense place. So when we install a chlorinator on a top of a water tank, and it takes only 1 day to physically install chlorinator, it helps at least 10,000 people instantly.
Oh, I see. So the whole thing is looking at the country. It's not just the infrastructure or the citizens, but it's actually the location and how to have the maximum impact. Is that true?
Oh, yes. And we made a discovery that our device is not only working for rural area, but it's working for urban area in developing countries. In developing countries, the water system is not centralized. Each neighborhood has its own water tank, and they just receive water from once in a while, like twice a week, each time just 2 hours and so on. So when we install a chlorinator in each decentralized water system, just they get contaminated water all the time, but when we install our device there, just instantly the water gets disinfected, and we can help tens of thousands of people.
Yeah, most people don't realize, because we have people right now watching this program in Norway and South Africa, Germany, France, throughout the United States, so all over the globe, and most of the countries that I just listed have a very sophisticated water transportation system. We think of, it's just like roadways. Water's the same thing. But yet when you're thinking about the 150 plus developing countries, very few have an adequate water transportation system. So that's why you were looking at the tanks in Port-au-Prince. You have a very dense packed population.
Oh, yes.
Tell us a little bit about this system that you have here. It looks very simple.
Okay.
And of course, this fits in perfectly to what we're talking about as best practices we can take around the globe, sustainable and very inexpensive. So tell us about this, Youngmin Chang.
Before we made the intervention, they put a powder chlorine in the water tank. And when there is a flow of water, when you put powder chlorine, it can be washed away right away. And there's no chlorine inside the water anymore. But when we put this gravity system of a chlorination system, water can go through this here, and then each chlorine tablet can dissolve very slowly, and the chlorine can go into the water, and then with the disinfected water, and then it stays, the water and chlorine stays in the water tank for about 40 minutes, and then you can kill all the bacteria in the water.
So this is actually then the pipe that's bringing the water into the tank then flows through this small device at the bottom.
Yes.
And then it forces the water to flow around the tablets.
Yes.
And then this goes into the tank. So you're not only just sterilizing the water, but also you're keeping the tank sterilized as well.
Well, actually, yes. It actually gets all the molds of the water tank inside.
I think this is something that most people don't think about. Oh, clean the water. But again, if you don't have an adequate distribution system, the water is staying into the tank for long periods of time, then the mold does build up.
Yes.
And then, of course, you have contamination coming out of the air as well.
Oh, yes, yes. And the nice thing about this is that it doesn't require electricity. When in Haiti, there is almost no electricity. I mean, no common people can have electricity all the time. They only have it like a couple of times a week.
That's amazing. People in Sweden flip the switch. Most places in Russia, you flip the switch. United States, flip the switch. Many of these countries, there's no switch.
Yeah, no. And also, chlorine can stay in the water for about a day or so. So when they bring this water in their water bucket, they carry a 5-gallon water bucket to home, and the chlorine can stay in the water. So that after that, when they put their hand into the water, and then chlorine residue can kill the bacteria on the hand.
So not only are we talking about you're actually sanitizing the water, but also you're sanitizing the tank.
Yes.
And then you're also sanitizing the humans that are actually using the water then.
Yes. And sometimes the people ask, oh, what if they use the water 3 days later? But then in Haiti, they get water, so little water and a week. They use up the water as soon as they get the water. They just use it up. The consumption of water in Haiti is 2 gallons or so per day per person, and in America it's 75 gallons, and the neighboring country, Dominican Republic, it's about 35 gallons per day per
I
person.
think those are numbers. Repeat those numbers, because I think our viewing audience, regardless of the city or the country they're in, again, it's just like over 1 billion people not having inadequate water. It's hard to get our minds around these numbers. You said the water consumption
in America is about 75 gallons per day.
Versus Haiti, which is
2 gallons.
2 gallons, my goodness.
The reason is that the water tank is not piped into each house. So a girl or a woman should carry water all the time from water tank to home. And it can be a mile or 2 miles each time they carry. And then first time when we installed our chlorinator on Jaluzé, my boss and I watched the girl carrying water bucket all day long. And she came back and again to carry water. And that's her job all day long, not going to school.
And I think many people don't realize that is that the tremendous burden. You have very young children, sometimes 10, 11, 12 years old, carrying heavy water. So a gallon of water, I think, is about 8 pounds, which is right at
8 pounds?
About 8 pounds per gallon. So
yeah,
if you have a young person that's carrying this on their heads, that compacts their spine. And then also, they're not in school.
Oh, no.
They can't be educated. We have some slides that from this project that you're talking about down in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, which is the capital city. I think you said it was about 2.5, 2.6 million in that one city.
Yes.
And this will give our viewing audience an idea of the absolute density of humanity in this area. Tell us a little bit about this area and some of the people that actually live here.
The town is called Jaluzé, and it's the first place we installed our first chlorinator on May 2006. And 50,000 people live in Jaluzé right here. And you can see actually the water station down there on the street. There are some people gather around to get water over there. And last year, a school collapsed in Pétionville, and Pétionville is right next to Jaluzé. And you can imagine why school collapsed when you look at those shacks.
And also, we're looking at this, just think of the logistic nightmare if you're trying to put piping or any kind of transportation system for water into that area. Let's look at some close-up slides. The very next slide coming up here. Tell us about this.
Oh, I took that picture on the same day when we installed the chlorinator on Jaluzé. And that kid, we watched her all day long. And
now, is this the young girl with the bucket that's actually facing the camera that you were
yes.
talking about?
Oh, yeah. She fetched that water bucket, I don't know how many times, but all day long. She just brought the water home and came back to get more water.
That's just amazing. Look at all those containers. So this actually is the transportation system. We looked at slides in an earlier show where you're talking about donkeys carrying the water buckets. Now we're looking at human beings having to carry
no
that.
donkeys in Port-au-Prince, actually.
Too densely populated. I think we have another slide. Talk about this. And also describe a little bit of the tank. We talked about the tanks, the water going in, sterilizing not only the water, the tank, and the human beings, but just look at this crush of humanity trying to get a little bit of water.
This town is called Simon-Pelé. It's across the street from Cité-Soleil. And Cité-Soleil is, the United Nations said that it's one of the most dangerous cities in the whole wide world. And this city also very dangerous, and gang members have a presence in the city. And this water tank over there is 1,600 gallons, I think. And on top of that water tank, you can see the small pipe. That's our chlorinator. So we put our chlorinator on top of the water tank so that when water comes up, it can go through the chlorinator and go down to
heating. And we see the pipe going up the side of the tank.
Yes.
And it's going in through the opening on the side.
Yes.
The water moves around the tablets and then it drops down into the tank itself. And we have one last slide, I believe. Tell us about this. Now, this is something going beyond just water, and this is part of the humanitarian effort, and we have only a few seconds, so we need to be quick.
Okay. Well, chlorine kills all the bacteria, but it does not kill worms. Sometimes worms can stay in the water. So we brought a bandager pills, which is a deworming pills. And when people have water, chlorine water, they can have still worms. So when they take this bandager pill just twice a year, those pills can kill all the worms. So comparable, it's very comparable with chlorine tablets.
We have about 30 to maybe 15 seconds left. What would the challenge be to the viewers all over the globe that are seeing this? What do you want to share in the last 30 seconds?
Well, I'm sometimes thinking that it's a blessing to be able to help so many people so quickly at my age. And it was possible because we received so much generosity from compassionate Americans. So thank you so much for helping us.
Youngmin Chang, the Associate Director for International Action, thank you for being here, sharing these photographs, sharing the wonderful best practices technology. Thank you for being with Emerald Planet. Dr. Sam Hancock, we look forward to being with you soon.
Art, a universal language, an expression of culture, of self. And now, thanks to Empowered Women International, a way for emerging and established immigrant and refugee artists and artisans to find hope to earn a living while enriching the lives of all of us. Empowered Women International, making a better America every day. For more information on Empowered Women International's educational programs or to make a tax-free donation, contact C. Fripp
at AOL.com.
Here, kitty, kitty. Here, kitty, kitty, kitty. Here, kitty, kitty.
You'd think it would be easy to tell which kids have trouble with their eyesight. But that's not always the case. Even though 1 in 4 children may have a vision problem, eye doctors tell us the symptoms aren't always so obvious. We do know that 80% of all childhood learning is visual. And without good vision, kids can have trouble learning to read and may fall behind in school. For clues on how to spot the real-life signs of childhood vision problems and what parents can do, visit checkyearly.com. A public service message from the Vision Council of America, and reading is fundamental.
We're back to the Inside Scoop Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Hello, I'm Dr. Sam Hancock, Executive Director and President of Emerald Planet in Washington, D.C., working with 143 countries around the globe, looking at and for the best practices that can be used in the over 150 developing nations around the globe. It's very important that we reach out to provide the services, the technology, and the products that can be used, but those products and services must be sustainable, and they also need to be very low cost, because in many of these countries the average income per day is less than $2. We have a tremendous problem facing the globe in developing countries as well as in the developed world, because the population is expanding at a very dramatic rate, and the water resources are not keeping up. So we have 3 experts that are with us that are going to be talking about some aspects of water, the essence of life in the various areas. Right beside me I have May Gwinn, who is the World Community Services member of Rotary International. Thank you, May Gwinn, for being here. We have Youngmin Chang, who is in the middle, who is the Associate Director for International Action. And then we have Lindsay Mattison, who is the Executive Director, and I just found out through the show is the founder of International Action. So thank all the 3 of you for being with us.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
May, tell us a little bit about Rotary International. We've talked earlier about Polio Plus, but talk a little bit about the future for looking at water resources and what may Rotary International be doing.
Well, this has been an exciting year for water, actually. The President, Secretary of State Clinton, the Congress are all looking at beefing up water initiatives. And Rotary is right on board with that. In March of this year at the World Water Summit, USAID and Rotary International announced a new joint initiative. They're going to look at the first inaugural year, which will be 09-10. They're looking at 3 countries where they're going to start looking at these countries as model projects for Rotary International and for USAID. And the reason is that USAID has missions in these countries. Now, what's
USAID?
U.S. Agency for International Development. It's sort of the development arm of the State Department.
Okay.
And Rotary, it has clubs in each of these countries.
And how many clubs are there and how many members?
Glad you asked. 33,000 clubs, 1.2 million members in 200 countries.
That's fantastic, covering the globe. So we're talking about Rotary International working with the United States Agency for International Development. And of course, we have the International Action representatives here, and they're looking at the World Bank, I understand, and maybe the Inter-American Development Bank and other agencies. Lindsay, tell us a little bit about International Action, how it got started, and then we're going to let you talk a little bit about the pilot project that you already have going in Haiti.
Well, we've been working
in Haiti for about 3 years, a little more than 3 years, and I think we picked the worst water situation in the world. I think Haiti has been rated as 150 out of the countries.
150th out of 150. Okay.
And it's a pretty sad thing. Port-au-Prince, the capital, is a city of 2.5 million people, and maybe 400,000 of them have water tanks and access directly in their neighborhood, which they have to go and get with a bucket and walk back. Generally, children do it. The other neighborhoods and the other 2 million people don't have any water in their neighborhood. It's trucked in and sold for a very high price, and is not. None of that water is chlorinated or clean. Waterborne diseases are the biggest killer, not only in Haiti, but in all developing countries. Cholera, hepatitis.
Well, you have malaria, beriberi. There's just a number of diseases that come out of the water. May Gwinn, tell us a little bit about some of the projects that the local Rotary Club has been working on and the countries there. And then we're going to have Ms. Chang talk about their project both in Haiti and then also their expansion into China.
Well, last year we had a couple projects, one in rural China where we served 2 villages, and one in partnership with other Rotary clubs in Zambia, as well as another one in Guatemala. This year we're looking at Nepal, Argentina, Niger, Mali.
And also India, I believe.
In India.
Correct.
There's South Bombay water project there. And hopefully we'll see more progress on the waterfront in our club.
Youngmin, Chang, you're working and have been in Haiti,
yes.
Working with projects down there. Tell us a little about what you saw on the ground, the importance of looking at these societies and trying to address clean water on one side, and of course sanitation on the other. What are you seeing in these countries?
Well, first of all, when there is no clean water, or the public water is not clean, there is a private sector stepping in. And in Haiti, before our intervention, private sector actually sold water at very higher price. It's usually Haitian dollar, 5 or 6 Haitian dollars per bucket, which is about 70 or 80 cents, US cents. And when we disinfect, chlorinate public water, it was sold at very low rate, which is about 4 good, about 1 good, which is about 4 cents. So people, mothers in Sierra Leone, the most worst slum in Port-au-Prince, they can save up those money, and then they can pay for tuition, or they can buy food with the saved up money. So we're not just giving a clean water, but it actually helps people, mothers, to use the rest of the money for their, or buying other stuff too. So we are actually helping their economy too.
Well, and that's what we're talking about through the Emerald Planet, that when you're looking at the environmental development, you must tie in the economy, because if you're not tying the economy with the environment, neither one of these are going to work properly. Lindsay Mattison of International Action, tell us a little bit about this new expansion to China. How did that come about?
Well, we have a pretty elaborate website that describes our project in Haiti, describes the chlorinator, and has a lot of the pictures of operations in Haiti. And the Chinese have a group focused on looking for technology for their rural areas, and they spotted this, and there is no technology for putting chlorine in small water systems. The whole chlorine industry is devoted to large municipal water systems and using...
Which are very expensive.
And which are very dangerous, requiring highly professional handling of liquid or
gas
chlorine, which are very dangerous. Our tablet chlorine is stable and safe for amateurs to handle, and the Chinese sort of liked it a lot, and they've got an order of magnitude, several orders of magnitude bigger problem, because in the one province that they've sent us to set up a model system, there are, what, 1,300 or so water systems. We've been bragging that in 3 years we did 120 water tanks in Port-au-Prince. Now in one part of one province, we got 1,300 water systems.
So you're going
to deal
magnitude
with.
of 10 times what you're doing. Gwinn,
I think Rotary International will be interested in this.
I think that'd be fantastic.
You know,
We're talking about linking people around the globe. We can do it right here in the TV studio.
They have a list of technologies that they have on their website, and I think that should be on there.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to
but Gwinn,
let them know about it.
Looking at,
on your website.
Looking at what's going on around the globe, many people say, well, we have all these problems in the United States, so why we bother? Why are we worried about these countries? What do you think? Why should we be bothered with Haiti, China, all these different countries around the globe?
I think there's a mutual benefit if the world works. We're all one, as in Rotary, we're all one world. And we feel compassion for these people who are disadvantaged, and we feel we have the technology to make a difference. We can pool our resources. We can gather our talents together.
We learn from what we're trying to share. I think that's what Youngmin Chang was saying. Why should we care, Ms. Chang?
What?
Got 30 seconds.
Answer? Because I know you want to answer for that.
Well,
he's going to get asked too.
Oh, I see. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I'm a Christian, so I certainly need to help other people, and I'm very blessed to be able to help those so many people in so many so little years. And I don't know why I should help, but when I go out and help those people and they thank me, I actually thank them for giving me a chance that I can help those people.
15 seconds. Lindsay Mattison, why should we be helping?
Well, they're helping us. Half our debt is in the hands of the Chinese. It's a good time to be nice to the Chinese.
Don't have much debt.
There are more than 1 million Haitians here. Every year they send back $1.5 billion to Haiti from the United States. We're pretty well linked in all these countries.
On behalf of the Emerald Planet, we'd like to thank you for being with us. We'd like to thank these outstanding guests that are reaching out around the globe. Thank you, and we look forward to being with you again soon.